Hi, so we are talking about Unit 2 today. Our very first lesson is going to be on how to graph using an X and Y chart. The very first page of your notes has it broken down into 3 different columns. Your first column is using an X and Y chart, so we're going to follow these directions in order to do the problem 1 on your guided notes. So I'm going to take this away and let's look at our guided notes. Okay, so this particular equation, linear equation, is actually in standard form. So you can see right here, standard form is a linear equation in standard form if it is in the form ax plus by equals c. So ax and by are on the left, and your constant is on the right, and you can see that that's the format that we have here. Now, in order to do an XY chart, you can definitely go ahead and do that without having to do anything to this equation, but I really like to solve for y, and it's very useful later on when we're doing another method. So we're going to do that first. In order to solve for y, we're going to move the 2x to the right-hand side. Okay, so 2x minus 2x cancels. I have 3y equals, and right here we're going to put this in descending order, so we're going to put the negative 2x first, and then bring down the 6, plus 6. We still need to get rid of the 3. In order to do that, we're going to divide. So watch carefully. I'm dividing by the 3 here, and then I'm dividing it here in this term, and in the last term. That's going to cancel. And we have y equals negative 2 over 3x plus, and 6 over 3 is 2. Okay, so we now have this in our slope-intercept form. We're going to learn in a little bit how to do that slope-intercept form, just graphing directly from this using our y-intercept and our slope. But for right now, we're going to use this XY chart. Now, the key here is we have a fraction here that we're multiplying by x. So if I just start picking random numbers for x, and you can, it will work no matter what you pick for x, but I may end up with a fraction for y, and I don't really want to graph that over here. So the trick here is to pick the denominator of this fraction, 3. That's going to be one of our x values. I'm going to pick 0, and then I'm going to pick the negative of the denominator, so I'm going to pick negative 3. Now again, I could pick any numbers I want to here, but this is going to help us out when it comes to fractions. So let's actually plug this in. This is really like 3 separate problems. So our first problem is going to be plugging 3 into x right here. So let's label this A, B, C. Our A part is y equals negative 2/3, and for x we're going to have 3, so let's plug that in for x plus 2. Now we can start to see why this works, and you could definitely put this in the calculator if you don't quite understand what's about to happen here. Just make sure to put parentheses around this fraction. But this 3 in the denominator and this 3 in the numerator are actually going to cancel out, and I end up left with negative 2 plus 2, and that gives me 0. So my y value, when my x value is 3, my y value is 0. Okay? All right, let's do B part. We're going to plug in 0. Now, I love plugging in 0 because if I plug in 0 right here for x, and then I add 2, 0 times anything is 0. So this is really y equals 0 plus 2, and this just gives me a y value of 2 when x is 0. So I come over here, I have 0, 2. Okay? And let me get another piece of paper. We're going to do this last one. So C part, we're plugging in -3. So back into this equation. Notice I'm using this one that I solved for y. I'm using it every time. So I have y equals -2/3 times -3. That went in for x here, plus 2. Okay. Now, be very careful right here. The 3's do cancel, but I also have this negative here. So this really ends up being a negative times a negative, which gives me a +2. And then I still have the plus 2. And 2 plus 2 gives me a y value of 4. So if the x is -3, the y value is 4. Okay. So now this XY chart is essentially points I'm going to use to graph this line. So I really have the point 3, 0. I have the point 0, 2. I have the point -3, 4. And we won't do this every time we use an XY chart. I want you to get in the hang of understanding that if I have the x value of 3, the y value of 0, that is the point 3, 0. So you don't have to rewrite it every time. Okay, let's graph these points over here on our graph. So our first point is 3, 0. So starting at the origin, I'm moving over 3, 1, 2, 3. And 0 doesn't go up or down. Okay. Starting at 0, I'm moving up 2. And then -3, 4. So starting at 0, going left 3 and up 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now you see, if we've graphed this correctly, our 3 points should be in a line, and they are. And this is not going to be perfect because I'm not an artist. Make sure you add those arrows on the end because the line does go on forever. Okay. Now I will tell you that if we were to choose another point here, so if I would have chosen 1, I would have ended up with a fraction that would still be on this line. If I chose 6 and I plugged 6 in, I would have -2/3 times 6 plus 2. The 3 cancels with a 6 and gives me 2. And -2 times 2 is -4 plus 2. And that gives me -2. And I would have had the point, again, we plugged in 6. And the y value I got out was -2. Let's see, is this on our line? Let's see. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. It's really close. I think if I would have drawn this line a little bit better, it might have gone through the correct way. And that's okay. Again, we're not perfect. And if you were to do this on the computer, it would only need 2 points. So on your paper, you need to have 3. Just to make sure that your points are lining up correctly. But when you go into my math lab, you only need 2 points. So you will click on the line icon, you will click the first point, then you will move your cursor and click the second point, and it will create the line for you. Okay, and so that was using an X and Y chart to graph a linear equation.